It seems like you're what I can see of you is real choppy.
You were a little choppy at one point. What about now?
Yeah, every time you do that, the whole screen blurs. It's like you're pixelated.
Yeah, I see that. I see the pixelation there on that. Let me check something here. Yeah, that's good there. Yeah, I see the pixelation there. All right, let's refresh. Or it looks a little bit better, but hold on.
Well, it seems to happen every week, so I don't know if a refresh is going to do it.
All right. Well, we're going to get started, guys. As you come on today, we're going to be talking about how you actually get paid, and that's via contract assignment when you're doing when you're flipping the contract and actually not the house. But I've got Brian here with me. We're going to be talking about this, and excited to see as we see people coming on. But as we're waiting, how are you doing, man?
Good. How's it going?
Good, good. I'm going to be looking at my phone to see the actual names of people that comment and things like that. Hey, Matt, I see you there. Just because that's a thing with Be Live, I guess. That's who we use to broadcast that, and they have some kind of privacy thing on there. So as you guys are coming on, say hello and what market you're in, and we'll get going shortly on this. But before we get into the topic, what I was thinking is pretty amazing about what we do from a marketing standpoint or from a finding property standpoint is that we really put ourselves in position as the wholesaler, as the marketer, whatever you want to call yourself, as the real estate investor, to find properties that are really at a really steep discount that we can then in turn hold if we wanted to for rental purposes. Or even setting up you think about it, all the responsibilities that we have in life, right? And some of that when it goes back to our kids and trying to fund if we want them to go to college and things like that. When we really are able to find discounted properties, it's almost like, you can set up buying a property and then you can simply take that property and rent it out. And then when the kids are ready to go for college, you could sell that property, and then you have a big sum of money that you can use. And if you've got 4 kids like me, that's 4 rental properties. But it's amazing what we could put ourselves in position to do because of this business. It's just a thought I had, and it's kind of motivating from the standpoint of people who are like, if you have problems, we live in a world where if we have problems, we could solve them with the amount of deals that we do. It's like one deal solves that problem. Like, what happens to a normal person if they have like a $15,000 problem or something like that? What do people normally do if that's the case?
I guess they go get a couple extra jobs or something like that. Work more, work overtime, something like that. But with wholesaling, the opportunity is there. You're creating that opportunity to do whatever you want with it. So whether it is wholesale it or, like you said, you can keep that property as rental property. So you're always creating those opportunities for you to maximize profits.
Yeah, I mean, some people go into debt or something like that if that's the case, but it's crazy. Yeah, somebody said they struggle,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the opportunities that we have and why it's so important to learn this business, not just even from a wholesaling standpoint, but from just, I mean, it really is a lifestyle design that or empowering in the sense that you can really create your own destiny by finding value and finding the value in discounted properties and things like that. So waiting for a little bit more people to come on, but let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about contract assignments. And what all does that actually mean when we're talking about contract assignment? We say we're going to assign our contract, or we're going to flip the contract, or we're going to sell our contract. There's a lot of different names or ways of speaking about it and bringing that idea up. But really, when you are wholesaling real estate, and when we talk about it that way, that is what we're meaning. We are actually assigning our contract, right? So in real estate, we've got obviously a contract that ties up a property or locks in a buyer and a seller, right? So you've got a buyer and a seller, and you've got the contract that holds that both together. So when we have an actual contract, we actually have some value. We have something that we can sell. And it's interesting, right? Because when we're talking about that, we're not, when we flip our contract, we're not actually selling the house, we're selling the paper, right? It's would it be similar, would you say, to like when a mortgage company, for instance, right? A mortgage company, they actually sell their mortgage to multiple companies down the line, and that's actually how they make some money, right? You got a mortgage broker who comes in and establish, or not even necessarily a broker, but somebody that comes in and establishes that mortgage, and then they can sell it down the line. Would you say that's similar to what we're doing here?
Absolutely. Yeah. The concept of wholesaling and assignments, I mean, you see that in a lot of different industries. And ultimately, just like you said, that example is, it's really important to know that, we are selling the contract or the paper on the deal. So it's very similar to what you just said with the mortgages and things like that, which is really important to keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even like a car dealership, right? A car, you go in, you get the financing, but chances are that company, unless they're, they like holding paper or like collecting payments on bad paper, they're going to sell that financing to somebody else who's going to take that over. And they get paid for basically constructing the deal, and then they sell that paper off. So that is really important, because when you realize what you're doing, you're just selling the paper. You're not actually selling the house. And from a legality standpoint, you cannot sell a house that you don't own, but you can sell a contract or a piece of paper that is a contract regarding the property itself. So, and to keep in mind, we're not attorneys. We're not, giving you legal advice in any way. This is just 100% informative. So, what does it, let's talk about what it means when we are assigning a contract. We kind of talk about the concept of an assignment, where we're actually taking something that that is a piece of paper or a contract, and we're simply selling it. But what does that mean when we assign a contract, right? We got to look at it from a few standpoints. Who would you say are the main characters in a real estate transaction, Brian?
Well, obviously you have the seller, you've got the buyer, which is you in the beginning,
yes.
And then essentially your end buyer that you are going to be trying to sell the property to. Those are three.
Sell the contract to, yes.
Yes, sell the contract to, exactly.
So each one of those roles or each one of those positions has a role, right? So the seller, number one, is contracting to sell a property. They're promising, yes, I am going to sell this property for this price with these terms, right? And then you have the buyer, which is you, who comes in and says, okay, yes, I am contracting or promising to buy the property for this price with these terms, right? So a contract can be assigned if it does not state that it cannot be assigned, or if there's a simple clause that says contract is assignable, right? So when you sell your contract, you're actually really selling your position in the contract, right? And that position is to buy the property for a certain price under a certain amount of terms, right?
Exactly.
So by doing that, you're giving yourself a position to sell the property or sell the contract. And during the closing, you would then get a assignment fee for selling or assigning your contract to that buyer. Which brings us to our next point, which is, what do we do after we assign a contract? What would you say, Brian, is the best thing to do? Do we just sit on our hands and say, oh, okay, we're done? We'll just, let me know when you finish the transaction, or what's the best thing a buyer should do when they assign a contract to a different buyer?
Yeah, so this is something that's really important that a lot of people that haven't gone through a wholesale deal before don't really know what to do. And it is a little confusing, because ultimately, once you've assigned that contract over, you're technically, kind of out of the deal. I mean, you're getting that assignment contract paid at closing, but technically you're no longer the one that's buying that property. So it is really important, though, to understand that if that deal doesn't close and your buyer that you've assigned it over to doesn't end up buying that property, then you're not going to get your assignment fee. So it's really important to make sure that you follow that transaction all the way through to the end. So a lot of times what you want to do is you want to make sure that obviously the title company that's going to be handling the transaction, you want to make sure that they have everybody's information. You want to make sure that they have the contracts they need, the copies of the assignment contract. You want to make sure that they kind of understand the process so that they know that the end buyer is the one that's going to be buying the property and that you've assigned that contract. So it's really important to make sure that everything is kind of set up on the closing side to make sure that it goes smoothly. And then in addition to that, one of the things that I always like to do is I still like to be in constant contact with the one that is selling the property. That way, because a lot of times they don't really know the process and they don't really understand what's going on. They are under the assumption that you're still, the person that's buying that property. So you want to make sure that, if there's any questions that need to be answered, that you answer those to them, that you're still kind of the direct line of communication, because if you don't get the property closed, you don't end up making money. So you really want to make sure that you kind of stay a part of the deal all the way through the end, make sure the communication there and that everything is getting done. Just that way, something doesn't get screwed up, because I've seen that happen a lot when it comes to closing. So it's really important to make sure that you still stay a part of the deal and kind of make sure that all the lines of communication are open.
Yeah, and part of that is making sure you're working with the title company that knows what they're doing, right? Because the title company obviously has to go and pull title, and they're going to pull that title and they're going to see if there's any title issues or anything like that. And at that point, when a title issue can pop up, which they do, the whole deal can fall apart if you're not careful. So it's very important to make sure that you work with a title company, because a good title company, because a title company can really help walk you through the deal and your seller at the same time. They can really be a really great point of contact, or they can completely just not know what they're doing and blow up the situation. So it's really good to have a good title company in your back pocket, because they're going to be the ones that are really going to facilitate this thing. So very important to find an investor-friendly title company in your area. So yeah, you do need to stay in touch with the seller during the process, even after you sign that assignment of contract, because you're that initial contact. So you definitely want to keep that in mind as you go throughout the transaction. So yeah, we are talking about assignment of contract. Does anybody have any questions about that, or points that you want to bring up that you think that are important, or just any questions in general? And we'll be glad to talk about that. So as you guys are putting in those questions, like I said, we've always enjoyed doing these videos. We enjoy getting everybody on the line here. It's good talking to different people, getting different points of view. And then also from different ranges of experiences and things like that. So if you guys are thinking that you're in a spot in your business where you're looking to take it to the next level, or you are looking for some kind of a program to help you guys, whatever position you're in, whether you're a newbie, whether you're intermediate, whether you're experienced, and you want to take it up a notch to moving from that deal here to a deal there kind of scenario to a consistent flow of deals, we've got a implementation accelerator program, which is designed specifically to meet your specific goals and needs throughout the process. So the whole program really revolves around creating the right business model that's going to work in today's market. And Brian, why would you say that's it? Why is that an important thing that we are working with our students and creating a business model that's working today as opposed to yesterday or 3 months or 6 months ago?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest reason is, the real estate market is always changing. Things have happened this year just with the amount of deals that are out there, the amount of competition that are out there. Some markets are super hot, some markets are slowing down, and we're in a lot of markets with a lot of students. So we're on the front lines doing deals ourselves in our own market and then with students. So we're able to kind of see some of these trends, see what's working, and we're able to essentially kind of shift and kind of go where where we can still be successful. Because right now, I mean, the real estate market's changing like crazy. There's a lot of people that are getting into the business, and things that were working even a few months ago just aren't working like they used to. So it's really important to be able to work with somebody that's doing deals and actively kind of seeing what the market's doing and things like that. So that's really important to work with somebody and to kind of know what's working and what's not working for sure.
Yeah. And what's awesome about that is, right, I'm consistently doing deals. I just closed on a deal today, closed on a deal last week, consistently doing deals. And by doing that, I'm in the trenches, right? So I'm looking for different ways to market. I'm looking for different ways to find deals that your competition may not be looking for. So I understand exactly the different struggles and the things that students may be going through, because these are things I'm facing on a daily basis, even down to a system infrastructure, like dealing with a lead manager, an acquisitions manager, and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of the next level stuff that gets you over that hump of deal here, deal there kind of thing. Those are all things that that I'm always working with on a daily basis. So the cool thing is, this group that we have, the implementation program as well, is a bunch of people from different ranges of experience. So by getting the different feedback from the different people that are in the group, we're always tweaking things. It's not just one cookie cutter thing that's just put out there. It's a tweaking thing that we're always keeping our finger on the pulse of, and we give that information to our students and help them overcome the different obstacles that they're facing. So if you're interested, we'll post a link here, and you can schedule a strategy session. We'll see if it's a fit. If it seems like you'd be a good fit, we'll be glad to invite you in, and if not, no big deal. But we're looking for people that are really trying to take their business to that next level. Or if you're looking to just get your first deal and make that life-changing point when you do that first deal, we're here to help you with that too. So, all right, let's take a look at some of the questions here that we've got. Looks like somebody's looking for transactional funding for cheap. So let's, number one, just really quickly explain transactional funding. So transactional funding is when you are getting funding that's going to close the deal. So this is not a contract of an assignment thing, but it's something that's going to fund your first side between the seller and the buyer. And then you're going to turn around and then close with your new buyer, where you're now the seller of the property. You own the property and you're selling to a buyer. So using, as far as funding for cheap, 2%, from what I know, that seems to be about the going rate. If you actually have a deal that you have a buyer and a seller lined up, and you're good to go with on both sides of it, you can just send me a private message, and I do transactional funding occasionally. When doing a double close, can you have the end buyer fund the first transaction to avoid paying double closing costs? Okay. So that's a question where you got to be careful, right? Because that's called a dry to wet closing. And most times a dry closing is illegal. So you got to check with your state on that when it comes to that. So definitely check with your attorney. So those are some general, looks like questions when it comes to closing. Let me see here. I'm trying to see what these questions here. So yeah, always check with an attorney when it comes to that for sure. Brian, can you post the link for the implementation program?
Sure.
For those that are asking, I appreciate. Yep, no problem there, Carlos. Anybody have any other questions about the assignment of contract, or anything around that process, or how that works? Be glad to answer those for you. One thing too, I would say about the assignment of contract, when you are assigning a contract, you want to make sure that if the buyer does not close for any reason, you've got a clause in there that will automatically revert the contract back to you. So that way you don't have to go and get a separate release, and then it ties up the transaction and all that kind of thing. So use if you've got a clause in there that reverts the actual contract back to you as the buyer, that is important. I had some recent deals to where the buyer didn't close because we had a title problem where the property actually has a fence encroachment on it. And they were like, well, we still want the deal, but we want you to fix it, right? Well, we came back in and we said, well, this is sold as is, where is. And that's why those terms are very important, as is, where is, depending upon the actual condition of the property, but also on the location of the property lines and things like that. That's where those terms come in. But they didn't close on it. And then they were trying to say, well, we need to fix it. And they didn't want to release the contract. They didn't want to release it back to us, which can cause a big mess, right? So the fact that our contract states as is, where is, but also states that if they don't close, that assignment of contract reverts directly back to us. So we could just move on at that point and without having to get a specific release or anything like that. So that's important. I mean, in fact, you should get a release signed, but if they're going to try to hold things up, then you can easily say, well, this reverts back to us. If you're not going to release it, then, then we've got some other issues and you can have your attorney handle that. But we like to do it that way. So that way we're not held up on that transaction. I purchased a double closed property once and didn't realize the title had to be seasoned. Got stuck with the property for 4 months. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing. Yes. So when you buy a property, it's very important that you realize who you're selling the property to, because when you're doing a double close, you are the buyer of the property. So when you're selling it, you need to check the financing on the flip side, because the financing with cash, right? No big deal. You could sell it to whoever you want. The guy, Matt, says it was kind of funny. Well, you're the one that held it. So
it's experience. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. It's experience. Just chalk it up to experience. Right. In my area, we have a lot of military. So we have VA financing. So with VA financing, it doesn't matter. We could buy it and sell it the next day. But if you've got conventional financing, yeah, you might. Well, actually, Brian, do you know about conventional? Does conventional mean you could sell it the next day?
I'd have to double check and see. It really depends.
Yeah. FHA, that's where you might come in with a little bit of a problem on FHA financing. It may be, they'll hold you up on FHA financing for 90 days. So yeah, you got to watch out for that for sure. All right. Let's see. Anybody have any other questions or experiences you want to share about assignment of contract? But if not, we'll wrap it up. I know it takes a little bit of a delay to get on there. The person was trying to get FHA loan. Yeah, there you go. FHA, 90 days. You got to watch out for it. And they also might be like, why are you selling it for this much more than you bought it? And they might have to order a double or triple appraisal or whatever it is and go through that rigmarole. So that's why an assignment of contract is nice, right? Because you're not having to pay closing costs, number one, which can totally... Oh, okay. Very good. That was my daughter letting me know the lawn people were here. The assignment of contract helps you avoid those double closing costs, number one, which eat up a transaction. And on the flip side of it, the assignment of contract helps you timeline is really not an issue. It's just as soon as you can get that transaction closed. How do you vet buyers? We can, that's something we can definitely talk about on another episode. In fact, I don't know if we have that. We may have that in our lineup coming up here soon. So good question on that. So we'll make a note of that. Any other questions? All right. Well, do you have any other comments about assignment of contract, Brian?
No, I think we covered it. I mean, a lot of people, I think, either don't think about assignment very often, or they think that, a lot of times they need to do double closings and stuff like that. But this is like the core basics of traditional wholesaling. And it really makes everything a lot easier, especially if you're newer in the business and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's just something that, that I think really makes the process a whole lot easier. You don't have to worry about funding or things like that. So for a lot of you that that haven't done it or think that assignment isn't the way to go, I would strongly consider it, because it does really make the whole process much easier for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really saves money. You don't have to sell a property for typically as much as when you go list it, and you've got commissions and all that kind of stuff on it. So if you can assign it, I would definitely strongly recommend that, because when we put properties under contract, we always have the option to assign it, and it's a great option if you definitely know how to maximize that opportunity. So, all right, guys, we will see you guys later. Good chatting with you again, Brian. If you guys are interested in the implementation program, just go to that link and schedule a strategy session, and we will see if it's a fit. We'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks.